Behold humanity in the late 19th century, a time of magnificent, chest-thumping progress. We could build towering skyscrapers that scraped the heavens. We could send messages across oceans in an instant with telegraphs. We could tame electricity itself, bending it to our will. We were masters of iron, steam, and ambition. Yet with all this power at our fingertips, with all this industrial might, we were absolutely, completely, and humiliatingly defeated by our own shoes. It's a story that proves the most fascinating histories are often the ones we've completely forgotten. If you enjoy digging up these kinds of stories, take a quick second to subscribe so you don't miss what we uncover next. The high button boot. It was the undisputed king of footwear and the tyrant of the wardrobe. To wear one was to signal your place in society. To put one on was to engage in a form of morning combat. Imagine a grown man wrestling with his boot like it was a stubborn alligator, fumbling with a tiny, infuriating button-hook tool. To be late for an important meeting because your boots had staged a rebellion? It was a common and deeply embarrassing fate. This daily nightmare was a universal struggle. But for one man, the brilliant, if slightly frazzled inventor Whitcomb L. Judson, this wasn't just an annoyance. It was a personal insult from the universe. This was a man who had already patented a new motor for streetcars. Surely he could conquer a bit of leather. After one particularly grueling battle with his boots that ended with him tripping over the cat and popping every button in a cascade of failure, he stared at his defeated shoe and had a thought that would change the world. Eventually. A very, very long time eventually. His workshop was a chaotic symphony of blueprints and gears. In the heart of this chaos, he had his eureka moment, frantically sketching a wild and absurdly complicated device. A series of hooks and eyes on a track, pulled by a slider. He called it, with a magnificent lack of poetry, the clasp locker. In his mind, it was the pinnacle of elegance. In reality, it was a mechanical monster, a clunky chain of metal that looked like something a steampunk knight would wear into battle. After weeks of tinkering, with a few springs flying into his face, he finally held up his finished prototype. He proudly attached it to a boot and, with a flourish, pulled the slider up. It worked. The hooks and eyes linked in a shaky but complete chain. He did a triumphant little dance. Then he took a single, confident step. The entire thing immediately popped open, sending tiny metal pieces flying like shrapnel. A single hook landed with a sad little plink in his teacup. Okay, so it had a few bugs, but Judson was not a man to be deterred. He packed up his exploding invention and took it to the grandest stage on Earth, the 1893 Chicago World's Fair. This was the fair that debuted the magnificent Ferris wheel and was lit by the genius of Nikola Tesla. And amidst these wonders was Whitcomb Judson and his misbehaving shoe fastener. He stood on a small stage, demonstrating the clasp locker to a skeptical Victorian crowd. He tried to close a boot. It popped open. The crowd gasped. He tried a mailbag. The bottom fell out, spilling letters everywhere. The debut was, to put it mildly, a catastrophe. Out of thousands of attendees, he made only one sale, to a mailman who was probably just being polite. Judson's company was bleeding money. The dream was dying. But every mad genius needs a patient sidekick. And for Judson, that man was Gideon Sundback. Into this chaos walked Gideon, a man who was the human equivalent of a neatly folded napkin. He was a calm, methodical Swedish engineer. While Judson was having creative tantrums, Gideon was quietly studying the flaws. The hooks were too bulky, the eyes inconsistent. The whole concept was a beautiful nightmare. For years, Gideon tinkered. He respected Judson's vision, but he knew the path forward wasn't more complexity. It was radical simplicity. He threw out the clumsy hooks and eyes and replaced them with something revolutionary, a system of tiny, identical interlocking teeth. He imagined a small scoop on one side and a corresponding bump on the other. In a moment of quiet, elegant genius, he realized that if he nested these teeth together, they would form a bond that was both incredibly strong and easily separated. It was perfection, mathematical, mechanical poetry. He called his creation the hookless number 2. It was simple, strong, and elegant. It was the modern zipper. He had perfected the idea. Now, they just had to convince the world to stop hating it. And for years, nobody cared. The public was already burned by the exploding class blocker. The company was still on the brink of collapse. But then, another war came. The U.S. Army, gearing up for World War I, needed a way for its soldiers to get dressed quickly. Buttons were a nightmare in the trenches. The hookless fastener was a dream. The military placed an order for thousands, putting them on uniforms and boots. For the first time, the invention wasn't a joke. It was a strategic asset. After the war, soldiers came home, and the public, seeing its military-approved reliability, finally started to come around. The final piece of the puzzle came from the B.F. Goodrich Company in the 1920s. An executive, trying on a new pair of rubber boots, was struck by the sound it made. He pulled the slider up, and it created a crisp, decisive, modern sound. Zip! He loved it so much, he decided to call the new boots zippers. The name was so perfect, so catchy, it jumped from the boot and stuck to the invention itself forever. The journey was complete, from a clunky, failing monster at the Chicago World's Fair, to a soldier's essential gear, to the unsung hero of our daily lives. It's a testament to the fact that even the most brilliant idea needs more than just a genius inventor. It needs a patient perfectionist, a wartime necessity, and a name that just zips. And so, after decades of failure, explosions, and public humiliation, and the genius of two very different men, the world finally embraced one of its most useful inventions. It's a reminder that the path to simplicity is often ridiculously complicated, and that a truly great idea can sometimes take a generation to catch on. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a jacket to put on. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into the chaotic history of a simple object, hitting the like button is a huge help, and subscribing means you'll be here for the next one. We have a question for you. What's another simple invention you use every day that you suspect has a crazy story? Let us know in the comments below.